The holiday we know as Patriots Day has become a Massachusetts staple for multiple reasons. On the third Monday of April, Boston is always bustling with citizens watching the Boston Marathon, the Red Sox at Fenway, and maybe even reflecting on the city's illustrious history. As this is one of the weirdest Patriots Days of all time, with our city stuck at home, it seems like the perfect time to learn how this day was formed. In the most simple terms, Patriots Day commemorates the battles of Lexington and Concord, which were fought near Boston in 1775. On April 19th, 1775, the American Revolution was in its early stages. One of the biggest battles of the war was in the town of Menominee, now Arlington, Massachusetts. Menominee was on the Concord Road between Lexington and Concord at Boston. While the fighting was going on in Lexington and Concord, 5,100 militiamen arrived in Menominee from neighboring counties. Knowing that the British troops were going to retreat to Boston, these militiamen took up the positions along the road that the British would take. They placed themselves in and around houses, stone walls, fields, and barns. The bloodiest fighting of the first day of the American Revolution took place inside of a single home, the Jason Russell House in Menominee. 11 militiamen died in this house fighting British troops trained in bayonet fighting. Patriots Day, April 19th, also marks the first deaths of the American Civil War in the Baltimore riot of 1861, which 4 members of the Massachusetts militia were murdered and 36 were injured. Therefore, Patriots Day commemorates the 25 dead militiamen, 40 dead British soldiers, and 4 members of the Massachusetts militia whose deaths helped spark the Civil War. Now that we are fully educated, time for some fun facts. Firstly, the holiday was originally held on April 19th, but was changed in 1969 to be in the third Monday of every April. This has, of course, lasted 51 years with little complaints. Don't worry, the facts will get better than this. Secondly, the holiday is also celebrated just as much in Maine because it used to be part of Massachusetts. They were separated during the Missouri Compromise in 1820, which didn't stop Maine. On a side note, Patriots Day is also celebrated in North Dakota, Connecticut, Wisconsin, and Florida. Thirdly, you may wonder how the day got its name. In 1894, the Lexington Historical Society petitioned the Massachusetts state legislature to proclaim April 19th as Lexington Day. Concord countered with Concord Day. When you say it out loud, it makes these two sound very egotistical. However, Governor Frederick T. Greenhalgh opted for a compromise, Patriots Day. Lastly, this may surprise you, but Patriots Day really has no connection to the Boston Marathon bombing of 2013. There is a separate holiday on April 15th called Boston Day, the same date in 2013 when the marathon bombing took place. Unfortunately, many people confuse Patriots and Boston Day, probably because of Mark Wahlberg, but it's hard to say. Still, it's nice to have separate days at the same time of the year to remember the start of the American Revolution and the Boston Marathon bombing, 2 of the worst atrocities the city has ever faced. It should also not be confused with Patriot Day, held on September 11th to mark the anniversary of the terrorist attacks in 2001. We may be quarantined on this Boston Day and Patriots Day, while we should be at the Commons watching the marathon, but that doesn't mean we can't come together as a community to remember what this city means to us and commemorate the lives lost in the battles of Lexington and Concord, and more recently the Boston Marathon. And when I say come together, I of course mean figuratively. Don't actually go near anybody. This is Matt Messina, back to you in the studio.